Okay. Got a few coming in. Oh, sorry about that. Okay. All right. All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming out on this Saturday morning to our air quality sensor workshop. My name is Clay Thompson, and this is my co-worker and co-lead with this project, Vivek. And today we're just going to give you a little bit of a survey of what we have going on as far as air quality monitoring at CEEJH, and a little bit about our rationale for these different monitors and how they work. All right. Okay, so just a little rundown on what we're going to cover today. The first thing is just talking about the need for these monitors, what we do as far as hyperlocal air quality monitoring and what that means. And then we'll talk a little bit about the difference between the two types of monitors that we have at CEEJH, which are mobile and stationary. And then we'll kind of dive into looking at how the data is coming back and how we can read it and interpret it. And then we'll kind of open up the floor for just some questions and answers, so that way you guys can get a little bit more insight on how everything is going, all right? Okay, so let's start off with our rationale for why we do what we do. So under the Clean Air Act, we are required to monitor 6 criteria air pollutants, and those are actually located at the top right-hand corner, and I'll just list them out for you. So you have particulate matter, you have carbon monoxide, you have nitrogen dioxide, lead, you have ground level ozone, and sulfur dioxide. And all of these different pollutants come from multiple sources that we run every single day for our society, whether it's our vehicles for transportation, our agriculture sources, our factories that produce different fuels and industry, as well as unfortunate wildfires and other natural occurrences. So what we are aiming to do is basically get a reading of what is happening with these pollutants and how they interact with us as humans in our daily day-to-day lives. Okay, and here is just an example of what we call the air quality index. It's on a number scale, but to kind of simplify it, we all know that green is generally good on most scales, but as you move down to the bottom, you'll see that we have a maroon color, which is the most hazardous. Now, when we talk about air quality and we talk about pollutants in the air, the effects aren't necessarily felt initially or after an hour of exposure. What we're talking about is compounding effects over a prolonged period of time. And so that's the reason why air quality isn't something that is really, it's not something that you can perceive initially just by going outside and taking a breath of air. It's more so something that is very subtle, unless you have an extreme case, like when we had the wildfires last year. When we looked at our monitors, we were seeing that maroon color all over the place, because those wildfires are just extreme examples of bad air quality. Okay. So another situation that we have noticed, particularly pertaining to particulate matter, is that there are certain gaps in measurements in comparison to what we have available as regular people. When we look at our government resources to see what air quality is, say for instance, if we pulled up your weather app on your phone, if you scroll down, you'll see a section that says air quality, and right now we're in College Park. Well, unfortunately, that number that says for College Park is a generalized number. It's not really specific to where we are in College Park. What we've seen is that you can have block differences of about 400% or more, depending on the situation, in different regions. An example of that is actually right here on the right-hand side of the screen, where you have, this is an independent study. This isn't from CEEJH, but it kind of details the same thing. On the 2 columns to the left are 2 different districts in San Francisco. The one on the left is, you can see it's a little bit clearer, but on the right-hand side, same city, but it's definitely more densely populated with a PM 2.5 concentration. The same can be seen on the right 2 columns, where that is the city of Oakland. We have West and East Oakland, and you can see that even in the same city, you'll have block-to-block differences. So basically what that is saying is that we can't necessarily rely on the government monitors that are kind of spread out few and far between, and they're not specific enough to our specific communities or where we're actually living and having our being. And so that is the methodology and the reason why we do what we call hyperlocal air quality monitoring. To contribute to that, one of the things that causes these types of issues and that we've also found pertinent is that a lot of the companies that are responsible for these industrial pollutants, they take what we call the path of least resistance, which means that they tend to go to communities and towns and areas where there is unincorporated towns, there's no mayor, there's no town council, there's no one who can vote and raise their voice and say, hey, look, we don't want this in our town or in our community. And because of that, a lot of times these transactions happen where a massive land is built or old warehouse or whatever the situation may be. And these companies just kind of start up and start producing. And when there are hearings that are for the public to be able to see or to come and voice their opinion, they tend to happen during business hours where people are at work or handling their regular day-to-day business and they don't have the opportunity to actually voice their opinion. Most of us, we work our 9-to-5 positions and then we have to handle business after work and then we may not be available until 7 or 8. But if you have a session that's going on at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, it's just impossible for people to be able to voice their opinions. And that's what we've seen, unfortunately. So how can we address this problem? One of the things that we do here at CEEJH, like we've been talking about, is our air quality monitoring. We have a few of the sensors here that we can see, but we can start off talking about our low-cost monitors. And what we mean by low cost is in comparison to the government monitors that I was speaking about a little bit earlier, where those range for about $20,000 plus. In comparison to some of the sensors that we have here that start out at about $200 and ranging up to about $7,000, which does still seem like a lot for our everyday person, but in comparison to what the government monitors cost, it's definitely low cost, and it allows us to have a greater area and get more granular and specific data to where we're actually placing these monitors, as opposed to the approximation that comes from our government monitors. And what you can see actually in the bottom right-hand corner, and we'll expand a little bit on that further in the presentation, is an example of one of the cloud maps that the PurpleAir monitor specifically has, where you can see multiple data points, but you can also see, and it may be a little bit easier to see for the folks online, but those numbers that are there are air quality index ratings for PM 2.5, but there are different numbers, even with some of the numbers that are close by each other, which shows what I was speaking about in the slide, a few slides before, how there can be differences in just the same city, the same area, but block-to-block differences depending on the different pollution sources. Okay, so let me talk a little bit about some of the low-cost monitors that I was just referring to. And we actually have two different types. The first type is a personal monitor, which is mobile, so you can either wear it on your person or attach it to your bag and go about your day, and it gives you the ability to kind of give what we call environmental storytelling to see what it's like for you to go through your regular day-to-day, as opposed to our stationary monitors, which tend to just stay in one place, whether it's your home or residence or if it's a headquarters for an environmental group that we're partnering with or something of that nature. So I have a few of these personal monitors here that we can pass around that you get a chance to see. We have our Airbeam monitor right there that Vivek is holding, and all of these monitors have their own power source. You just charge them up and switch them on and then they just go. The next one we have is that flow meter right there. This one measures PM 2.5 as well as VOCs, which is volatile organic compounds. And then the other one that you see on the screen here at the bottom right is the ATMOTUBE, which is another PM 2.5 sensor. As you can see, they're really lightweight. They're about the size of a phone or smaller. So it's really good for a mobile monitoring device, and then it also does that environmental storytelling that I was just referring to just a minute ago. All right. And here is an example of some of the stationary monitors we have. I have two here in person. The first one is actually to my left. The farthest left are the PurpleAir monitors. Those do from PM 1 to PM 10, which I'll get a little bit into. And they also do temperature and humidity. The advantage to the PurpleAir monitors and this C-12 monitor is that they're both waterproof and weatherproof. and they require a external power source and a connection to the Wi-Fi to be able to upload the information that they're receiving as far as air quality is concerned to the cloud map, which we'll have an example for in just a minute. And the third sensor that we use here at CEEJH is the QuantAQ MODULAIR, which has multiple points of data of which that it reads from PM, temperature, humidity as well. And all three of these monitors actually, they upload their data to a cloud map. So it's a little bit different for each one, but what we're able to do is to look at the data in real time. They all run 24/7, so we're able to take out averages from the 10-minute, from the hour, from dailies, to be able to see what's going on. Specifically, say for instance, if we had a monitor at a school, we'll be able to track what the PM levels are in the beginning of the morning when the buses are there and kids are getting dropped off. We'll be able to see what it is in the middle of the day, and then also compare what it is when it's pickup time, to really see what our kids are being exposed to, what our teachers are being exposed to, what's going on in our actual community specifically. Whereas our government monitors, like I mentioned earlier, will just kind of give you a general number and it'll stay the same most of the day. All right. So let me get a little bit into how the PurpleAir monitor specifically works. So personally, I do a lot of these installs. We've done, I think, close to 100 or more of these installs throughout DC, Maryland, and Virginia over the last year or so. And just to get it set up, the first thing that you need is a stable Wi-Fi connection. Generally, because the monitor will be outside, we'll try to find a location where you can do either a zip tie or a single screw to screw into something that can hold it. It's very lightweight. And we also would need an external power outlet or some type of like extension cord that runs from inside if there's no external power outlet on an older building or something of that nature. And like I was saying, another example, especially for those online, if you're watching, you probably can see it a little bit better, but at the bottom right-hand corner, you'll see an example of that crowd map, which each individual circle there is a PurpleAir monitor in each individual location. Yeah, and I can move forward. So here's a little example of what it looks like to get it set up. The first thing, like I said, you plug the monitor into an outlet and then it'll power on. The next thing you want to do is just connect it to whichever the Wi-Fi network is. Unfortunately, it only works with a network that has a password on it. It doesn't work for whatever reason with open networks. But yeah, so you would just kind of register the device that way. And then once you have it connected, the next step is just registering the actual device with the device ID. And going through that process, you can see online probably a little bit better, but on the right-hand side, you'll see where there's an indicator for outside or indoor. We generally use these for outside use. And then also, if you're a resident that didn't want your monitor on the public network, there is an option for a private option to where it'll give you basically an individualized link for that particular monitor. So that way, you as the host and us as the monitors of the monitor can just make sure that it's up and running at any time. Okay. And they also geolocate of each one, of course, with latitude and longitude once you do the registration process. All right. No, I can keep going. Yeah. So now, before we actually take these monitors and put them out into the community, we do a process called co-location. And the purpose for that is just to make sure that the monitors are running correctly. So we actually take our monitors and put them next to those government monitors that we were talking about a little bit earlier. We let them sit there for about 2 weeks and just let them run their process and then come back and then check the data to make sure that it's accurate based off of what our government monitors are reading for that particular location. And then once that happens, then we're able to take it out. And you can see some pictures at the top right-hand corner. That's one of our co-location sites. And then at the bottom right-hand corner is actually an example of this particular monitor, the C-12 monitor, in action, sitting right there. So they're not really monitors that draw a whole lot of attention. They tend to kind of just get overlooked. And once you plug them in and kind of get them registered and set up, they just run on their own 24/7. And they don't really require too much maintenance, as long as you're watching them.
Just a quick question.
Yes, I have one in my house.
Yes.
Dr. Zeus.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was one in my back, in my yard.
Okay.
She's coming to do the data probably one day next week.
Okay.
Yep. All right. Yeah, that's good to know.
I assume you have.
Yeah, cool.
I'm assuming that she gave you a custom link, and we'll talk about that with the black carbon monitor
Yep.
slides. So beautiful. Thank you for the comment. Yep.
Yes, and as we'll wait on that. So the difference here with this this monitor that we have open and in comparison to the others is that it reads black carbon, which is a different pollutant than PM 2.5. And we're still actually in this space working on creating standards for black carbon because they just don't exist just yet. But we do know that black carbon is a contributor to major health issues and concerns. Yep. So right now we're going to do a little exercise to be able to take a look at, in a bigger sense, the PurpleAir crowd map, so that way you guys can just get a chance to see it for yourselves. And if we can, yeah, just give us a second here.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me take a question. Sure.
We do work in PA, and some of our people have the PurpleAir monitors in their homes.
Okay.
What about like the positioning? We've done like the comparison of the data, like from the government to where it is in their home, and they're like centrally located right in the backyard of a steel plant. And for some reason, it's showing that the community is less impacted, but it's moving, the communities that are a little further away are more impacted. So is it because of, the readings could be like skewed because of where it's even positioned in the home, as well as like you were saying with the government? Because we don't understand that I'm right there living in the center of it,
Right.
but it's saying where we are, the air quality is improving, but the traveling of it is making other, communities, more burdened. So would that be
got it.
because of where the government air monitor is at, as well as the positioning of where the air monitor is at in the home, more?
Okay. For those online, the question was, does the positioning of the PurpleAir monitor determine the reading of the air quality? Is that what you were asking, ma'am?
Yeah, the quality.
Okay.
Of the reading, because in comparison to what, like you were saying, that the government has them.
Right.
And then people have them in their homes,
Mm-hmm.
but the information is not consistent.
Okay.
It's saying it's better, and the people who are living there are saying, no, it's worse.
Okay. So to clarify, were you saying that in your community that they're having the monitors inside of the home, or are they outside of the home?
They, both.
Okay. So because I'm not sure on all of the specifics of the situation, what I would say is that there could be different factors that are contributing to that. I'm not sure of like what the wind patterns may be, but it is possible that those particulates could be carried by different wind patterns. That is something that is worth looking into. We haven't done as much indoor air quality work as we've done outdoor, so I would investigate, just how those monitors are set up, and then maybe try to do a study on, maybe, I'm not sure, maybe 300 feet away from the source, 600 feet away from the source, to try to get a little bit more data as far as to where this particulate trail may be going. Yeah. No problem. Okay. We have any other questions?
Not yet.
Okay. All right.
We can switch back.
Yeah, we can switch back.
There was one question. Yes.
Oh, yes, go ahead,
I
sir.
have a quick question. With the smaller air monitors,
Mhm.
how much space do they kind of monitor and cover?
Yeah.
I work in a school, so
Mhm.
throughout the day I'll be in one side of the building and one side of the building. But
Yeah,
like if I have one of the monitors attached to my bag,
Right.
would it cover this entire room, or would like with that separation open, would it cover both areas?
Yep.
Space?
Sorry. Yeah, so for those online, the question is, what's the catchment zone for each of the smaller monitors, like the mobile monitors, right? And maybe also extending that to the stationaries as well. Specifically for a couple of the sensors, for particulate matter, right? So the Atmotube measures particulate matter. That's our mobile monitor for particulate matter. The PurpleAir measures particulate matter. The catchment zone can be just under 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer. So it has a really great catchment zone. That being said, when you're trying to capture the air quality for an entire community, then you need like 10 or 20 of them.
Right.
So That's what the literature has shown. It's what we consider like concentration decay, right? From the source to 1 kilometer, you have that catchment zone. Then over a kilometer, that's when the dispersion occurs. So for a school, it's really great. You would be able to use that for the entire school's exposure, the indoor mobile monitors, as well as a PurpleAir, as well as an outdoor monitor. You could position it on one side of the school, and that would be responsive to pollution at the other side. So hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Okay, yeah. You want to talk about C-12?
All right. Thanks, Clay, for the contextual background and the PurpleAir demonstration. So next up, we're going to talk about the C-12 black carbon monitor. So that's what we see right here. What this monitor does specifically is it uses a special filter tape that's pulled across this measurement module. So if folks want to come up a little bit, sit in the front and take a look, if we can get our camera kind of positioned onto the device for those online. What we essentially do is we take this filter tape, we drag it across this measurement module in the center of the device, and then we tape it onto the right reel. That right reel then pulls the filter tape across, and as it pulls the filter tape across, black carbon particles will deposit onto the tape, and there's an antenna attached to the device which will upload these readings in real time to what's known as the C-12 map. So if we can get the graph up really quickly, the graph up really quickly. And then on the screen right now is just what I kind of mentioned. So our team will essentially do these tasks for you before we deploy. I want to emphasize that. You might have seen the description for the PurpleAir setup, the registration. These directions are just in case you wanted to purchase one of them on your own and privately host them. So I think we're going to get the graph up shortly. So as you can see, every user for the C-12 black carbon monitor is given a private link. This link can be shared with the research team, it can be shared with the community, or it could just be shared with the folks who the residents want it to be shared with. What you see here is real-time data across 3 days. We as scientists can also gather data for the entire study period, whether it's a year, 2 years, or beyond, using what's known as the COMET software. As Clay had mentioned earlier, there is no standard for black carbon. However, it is a constituent of PM 2.5, which is regulated. Therefore, it is very harmful at very small concentrations, as low as 600 nanograms per meter cubed. Not micro, that's nanograms. As you can see here, most of the time, the values tend to stay below 600, but you do have these acute peaks that are 6, 7, even 10 times that threshold that we see, where we begin to see cognitive inhibition amongst children, as well as respiratory distress amongst adults. So I just want to emphasize that. If we could scroll down a little bit, please, to the bottom of this. Keep going. Yes. It's also geolocated. For example, this sensor currently is positioned in Beltsville, Maryland. For those of you who are from out of state, this specific location is a very secluded, isolated spot, a lot of green space and vegetation. So as we know, when you have a lot of green space, it serves as a carbon sink, so it actually removes black carbon and air pollution from the atmosphere. So we can use this as not only a control site, we can use this as not only a reference site. So this is where the government hosts a monitor, so we can compare our low-cost sensors. It can also serve as a control for communities that are environmentally burdened. Go back to the presentation, please. Okay. So this is just the layout, as I had mentioned before, similar to the PurpleAir. You just plug it in, and then you load the filter tape, as I had mentioned. So you're just pulling that from, as some of you might have in your hands right now, you take it out of the bin and you pull it across the measurement module and then fix it onto the right side, and it'll begin to collect. Within the device, you have what's known as some LED lights. So this just indicates whether the device is working properly. The green light indicates that the device is in fact running well. And then the other lights correspond to different failures, which our team can also see online, and we have a very fast response. Generally, it's led by Clay, who's our installation expert, who'll come to your residence within 72 hours to make sure that we're able to get the device running and that we have consistent data. Because as the EPA is not notoriously known for, they do have various data quality guidelines. So if you don't meet those data quality guidelines, if you don't have, say, 75% completeness of data, then you can't really use that to instill change because they'll say that it's not valid. So just want to emphasize that right there. While you have a private link sent to you, the research team, so I see we have some researchers in the room right now, they have access to what's known as the Comet software. And I don't want to demonstrate this now because it's a lot of code involved, but essentially we're able to pull data for beyond those 3 days that you saw on the map, on the graph. So we can pull data from all time, essentially, and use that to compare seasonal averages, temporal variation, and other factors. Let's say that there was, for example, an explosion at a scrapyard or some other disturbance. We can retrospectively look at the data and see if we can attribute the black carbon peaks to that noise pollution, to your quality of life, and use that as a story to tell our policymakers. So I won't get into the comment. We already looked at the dashboard, so we can skip over that. So any questions on the C12 black carbon monitor before we get into the next device? Just want to take a moment. I know it's a lot of information. Yes, ma'am?
Can you share some examples of where you have those located in the community or in this area?
Yeah, so we don't have a map right now, but I can tell you the specific communities.
Okay.
So, yes. I work on leading the EPA's American Rescue Plan Community Air Monitoring Project for Maryland, and we currently have 5 of the black carbon monitors in the town of Cheverly. So the question for the audience is, where do we have these monitors located? And for those who are out of state, Cheverly, Maryland is sort of right with Fairmont Heights and Seat Pleasant. It makes up this quadrant that's right next to the eastern border of Washington, D.C. And then, we also have the black carbon monitors in Turner Station, which is in Dundalk, Maryland, so south of Baltimore, as well as Curtis Bay, which is right in the heart of the South Baltimore, which also experiences the largest medical waste incinerator, as well as coal dust. So, and then I have a question from the audience from one of our researchers, actually.
Oh, I
Yes.
just wanted to add, since you asked about the DMV.
Yep.
I'm from Trinity in DC, and we have 3 monitors. One is Sharon Edwards in Brentwood, which is home of trash transfer stations, asphalt plants, body shop, trash. Yeah, lots of stuff. Ivy City and other.
And we're also trying to build a network right along the 295 corridor. So that's the highway that intersects communities in DC. I don't know specifically if that's by Brentwood or Ivy City or not, but we're trying to connect the data from DC to Prince George's County, so right along the border, because air quality doesn't just impact, it's not based on jurisdiction. It's not like, oh, PG County, Prince George's County, and DC are dichotomized. It's a regional effect. So.
Okay, great. Well, you Maryland folks have.
And we have our contact information at the end, so if folks are interested in being involved, whether it's looking at the data, whether it's hosting at one of our monitors, you can reach out to myself or Clay. I'm going to let Clay talk about the extent of our PurpleAir network, which is much more vast due to the lower cost nature. I think we have 200 sensors deployed in the DMV, so go ahead, Clay.
Yeah. Just wanted to kind of give you guys an update. I didn't mention it earlier, but we have partnerships with Prince George's County Public Schools, with the African Methodist Episcopal Church, with the United Church of Christ, the Interfaith Power and Life groups. We also have some PurpleAir monitors in the Cheverly network area. We have some in Curtis Bay. We have some in Turner Station as well. So I've done a lot of installs over the last year and some change. And the PurpleAir monitors, because they're a little bit lower in cost, we're able to use our wonderful grant money to be able to keep buying some and get them up. They're a little bit easier to install as well, and they don't require as much maintenance. So it's something that we try to do in partnership with our other monitors just to get a full spectrum of air quality monitoring throughout the region. I've traveled in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We have some down in Fredericksburg, Virginia. I've taken some to Arlington. I've been all over. So just to give you an idea, we're trying to get a good map of what's going on regionally, but also specifically within each region. Yeah.
Thanks, Clay. And we also provide remote technical assistance to community partners in New Jersey. We're working with Harambe House in Savannah, Georgia. So, it's an ongoing and expansive network. And just a quick note on the accuracy of the monitors. I think that's one question I haven't received yet, or might have received but haven't answered. How accurate are these compared to, the government monitors, the regulatory monitors? And I can tell you that at a fraction of the cost, so, 10% of the cost, 5% of the cost of government monitors, our sensors function at least 77% of the accuracy for the black carbon monitors and well upwards of 85% for the PurpleAir monitors. So this is all based on the EPA's, citizen science toolkit. All right, so we actually weren't able to get to this slide in the last air quality workshop, so I'm glad that everybody's here today. So we unfortunately don't have this specific device with us because it's sitting at Beltsville. It's the government monitor. We're trying to compare the values to the gold standard. But next up, we have our QuantAQ MODULAIR. This is one of my favorite monitors, actually, because it's multi-pollutant. It's the same cost as a black carbon monitor, but it measures all PM fractions. So you have PM10. For those who have asthma, such as myself, it measures dust, pollen, mold, other allergens. It measures PM2.5, the finer particles that get into your bloodstream. It also measures PM1, which hasn't been as extensively studied in the literature, but it's smaller than PM2.5, so it does have various cardiopulmonary endpoints, like early onset asthma, COPD, stroke, and reduced life expectancy altogether. Question?
Wait, you said this is about the same cost as a black carbon monitor. Can you give me a ballpark?
$7,000. $7,000.
Okay.
The black carbon monitor used to be $3,400, but they've since doubled their cost because we have seen one of the limitations of quote low-cost monitoring is the privatization of the sensors, and with that comes spikes in cost. Yes.
Are there programs that help communities to purchase these?
The question is, are there programs that help the communities purchase these? I saw some fingers pointing in the next room. We do have an EPA TIC-TAC, Thriving Communities and Technical Assistance Program, which community-based organizations can apply for technical assistance, and our academic partners will cover the cost of deployments in communities. Yes. Yes, sir.
So another question, but a comment. My name is Ryan Johnson. I'm one of the
Yeah.
I actually worked with this exact MODULAIR.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say how great it was.
That's good.
Really receptive. The whole layout and everything was great. I mean, for what it's worth, I think it's really, really good to have in the community. I worked on that. It might be the MBE site you're mentioning. I worked on that same exact one.
Yeah.
So it was really, really nice, and I think these work really, really well. These are also my favorite air monitors.
Okay. Yeah, the comment was good experience with the modulairs, and I agree. They're a lot more hands-off. There's no filter tape you have to worry about, because sometimes with the black carbon monitors, they actually don't upload consistently to the cloud, and so we lose valuable data. With QuantAQ, not only do we not have that issue, but the support, the customer service is very quick. They have a great system, so I highly recommend this for, if you want to start up a hyperlocal network to gather as many pollutants as you can. I would recommend using this device. And there was another question. Yes.
Just a quick question. Just to kind of piggyback off of the question she asked earlier. Is there some system to make sure that they're in like schools and hospitals and
Yep.
particularly public
Right.
public use areas?
So the question is, are there systems to make sure that we are placing these monitors in like vulnerable receptor sites, right? So for each of our hyperlocal networks, and I can speak on Cheverly, Turner Station, Curtis Bay, even in Newark, New Jersey, we have separate community advisory boards. And so when we begin this project, we meet with the Community Advisory Board of the CAB, who live in the community, and we ask, where would you like to see the monitors? We determine based on the environmental riskscape, right? Based on the pollution sources, where do we want to place them? And we also work with Prince George's County Public Schools. So we do have black carbon monitors at some high schools, but we can't.
Yeah, and some PurpleAirs.
And some PurpleAirs. PurpleAirs we have at many high schools, but for the black carbon monitors, we have to be more selective because of the cost. And what we've seen actually is schools have higher black carbon levels than other sites because of the trucks, the buses. The buses. At the University of Maryland, we are undergoing electrification of our bus system, and we have black carbon monitors at the bus stop to see a pre and post analysis. So we have we're going to get that data. I don't know when they're starting that. I think it might be, I saw some infrastructure on campus, so it might be this year. So we'll see. So it's really interesting. The high school, the students who are at higher risk are seeing black carbon levels that are above that threshold where we see cognitive inhibition. So it affects their ability to learn, it affects absenteeism, and that has long-term impacts.
So let me also raise this. When there are historic maps, red line maps, in the city, as you well know, that can really show you, not only historically, but currently, areas that, based on the social and environmental vulnerability index,
Right.
where they are mapping high levels of asthma, hypertension, preterm birth. I work in Baltimore City.
Definitely.
Around preventing, preterm birth, low birth weight babies. And so why is it that these are not placed in those areas where we know historically and currently there's still problems? I'm just gonna raise the question.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it later, but there's a question.
Right. I think you want to take it?
I can take it.
When we're talking about admission to a hospital for a child.
Right.
For asthma.
Right. Okay. So for those online, the question from the audience was, why is it that our monitors aren't necessarily placed in known zones where there are health concerns that are related to air quality? And I'll just quite frankly say it. That's the reason why we do this work. We try to reach out and outreach to really anyone who may be interested. And we always, when we have these presentations that Vivek and I have kind of given all over the state, is just if you're interested, reach out to us. Here at CEEJH, we try to act as a bridge between our government policy makers and our communities that are, actually experiencing these concerns. So I'll say this, like I've said at the end of every presentation, if you are interested or if you have some communities or some peoples that need some help, we are here to help address those concerns by using our monitors, so that way we can get in front of our policymakers and leverage change. That's generally what this whole program is about, is being able to have relevant, tangible scientific data to put in front of the people who sign our bills and our laws. So that's what I can say our answer is.
And my quick follow-up is we're also still working on making sure that our network is reaching those communities, because we just started using the black carbon monitors. We're working with Turner Station, like I mentioned, with Curtis Bay. But as we expand our arsenal, we do want to be able to build these partnerships and get to those sites that you had mentioned. So, I'm not saying that what we're doing is good. It's in progress.
Right.
I want to just emphasize that this is a work in progress.
Absolutely.
And we're trying to do it as quickly as we can, because we know that every year that passes by, we see tens of thousands of deaths related to pollution.
Exactly.
So, there's no time to waste. One more question, yes.
Hi, I'm in Brentwood, and we really need help over there because we have the transferring place, we have Fort Myers, we have DPW, we have capital paving, we have DDOT. Now we have a bus terminal that's coming right. All this is right in my backyard.
Right.
So I have asthma, I have upper respiratory problems, issues, and I can't go outside plenty of days to enjoy the weather, and because the air quality over there is a D-. So we definitely need help in Brentwood.
For sure.
Yeah, thanks for raising that point.
Help us do, and
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and you mentioned a great point, because we have the data. The data is looking bad, right? The air quality is bad. Now it's like, what can we do with the information? How can we turn it into action? How can we engage the agencies? I work with MDE, and they've done stuff for Chevrolet. There's more that they can do, and I would love to see what the DC equivalent is doing too. And maybe like we can talk after this and kind of collaborate and see if there can be inter DMV agency collaboration, because yeah, like I said, air pollution doesn't just follow jurisdictions. It affects everyone in the region.
Cause I don't have no time to lose, I'm getting up at age.
No, I understand.
Live
Yeah.
as long as I can, so we need to support this. Yes.
All right. Were there any other questions before I continue?
What's the area you said you covered in the
So beyond the DMV, I also work with partners in Newark, New Jersey, the South Ward Environmental Alliance. We had a session 2 days ago, actually, on the work done there, and we do have black carbon monitors starting to be placed. And we've seen that the levels, average levels for a residential location in the South Ward of Newark is equivalent to living right off of Interstate 95 southbound, right off of the rest stop. And that rest stop in Maryland is where you have a lot of trucks that take breaks. They have to, right? I think for the long hauls, they have to take a 20-minute break, and they leave their engines on. And it's worse in the summer when they need to put AC. It's worse in the winter when they need to put, have heat. So it's a really, it's a story that we can tell. It's like, how can we use that? How can we tell our policymakers to help the people? And the last thing I'm going to mention is we have a Mid-Atlantic Justice Coalition, and within that we have environmental lawyers, we have subject matter experts, we have green groups who have earth justice representatives who have a lot more experience in this realm. So as a scientist, I can only say so much, so I would love to have that conversation with those folks too. Yeah. So, yes.
Have you guys experienced any agency or any whatever, stymie or hindering your work?
We're on the streams. I don't know. I think.
What issues may prevent you?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You want to take this one?
Yeah. So to not to generalize it too much, but what I will say is that there is a somewhat focused effort coming from industry, big industry, to try to prevent environmental efforts like what we have going on and others from our partners from taking full effect. In our session yesterday, there was a gentleman from West Virginia who mentioned that CSX was challenging our community science efforts and trying to make it seem as though that they're not valid. So there are definitely some opposers to this type of work. Really, when you look at it, I mean, these big industries, we're talking about billions of dollars, right? When we talk about bottom line, people want to make money so that way they can preserve their lifestyles, regardless of who they hurt. So yeah, we do run into some opposition, but I think that it's most important for us to continue to collect tangible data, because numbers don't lie. Numbers and data just don't lie. Science is science, and it has to be accepted. So the more data that we collect and the more that we put it together in a way that is understandable, for the masses, and then we also keep our policymakers accountable by making sure that they also read and interpret this data, then we have to put the ball in their court, in a sense, to allow them to do their job. So that's the most succinct answer I can give you, sir.
And I've come to learn that the National Association of Manufacturers actually sued the EPA's push to reduce make the PM 2.5 standard more strict. Their claim was it's not possible for all a certain percentage of the communities to be under that threshold, and that'll have like economic ramifications. And that's why we see that the EPA standard for some pollutants is higher than the international guidelines, because the international guidelines are based purely on the health, right? How can we prevent folks from dying, right? The EPA's standards are based on how can we prevent people from dying, but also help our economy thrive. So it's like there's definitely conflicting factors there. And then I'm just doing my best to make sure that I'm producing the most quality data so that I'm following the EPA's guidelines, because the EPA's guidelines are what MDE and state agencies are gonna, trust. They're data quality indicators. So that's my job. And then, obviously we need help. We need to find our subject matter experts, the environmental lawyers, folks who can kind of navigate the policy stream, because that's where I'm a little bit limited. So. Okay, so this is the Modulair's layout. Again, it's very simple. It's a multi-pollutant sensor. It measures PM, it measures carbon dioxide, it measures nitrogen oxides, it measures ozone, and all you have to do is just turn the device on. There's a power switch right there. There's also an SD card, so if there's any issues in the field in terms of reading the data to the cloud, you can just pull the SD card out, and the research team will look at the data that way. So like I had mentioned, you have the SD card on the device. You can use that, but we also just download the data from the cloud console. I don't know if we can click on that link and show them, because I might have to log in, but do you know if you know your password? It's fine. But this, oops. Oh, we don't have to show them the link. I have a picture. Just, oh, I was trying to get back. Okay, there we go. So if you were to click on the link, this is what you would see. It might be easier again for folks online. But on the left, you'll just see a map. So it's similar to a PurpleAir crowd map, but for the various pollutants. So you can actually scroll by pollution and see pollutant and see how high it is, to see if it exceeds the EPA standards, to see if it's higher than other communities, to look at these hotspots. And then on the right, we can look at a line graph for each pollutant, and we can download the data accordingly, and we convert these to more easily digestible visualizations for the community. So the next device we have here that was passed around is the Atmotube, and this one measures PM or VOCs? Okay, so this one measures total volatile organic compounds, which include benzenes, toluenes, and other products from paint, from wood processing plants, etc. It does have carcinogenic effects, so it is linked to cancer. And this device is mobile, and we've actually deployed this. We've integrated this monitor into the curriculum of high school students in PG County. So as Clay had mentioned, we have a partnership with Prince George's County Public Schools, and we've actually delivered simpler versions of this presentation to the students, and they're really great with digital technology. I know we have some students in the back, right, from Baltimore, so I'm sure that you've grown up using your smartphone. You know how to download an app from the App Store, whether you have an iPhone or an Android. Don't know many folks that have Androids nowadays growing up, but it is compatible on both devices. So you just go to the App Store, you download it, and then you just turn it on. So you press the power button in the center of the device, and then you can just walk around, whether it's your school, whether it's indoors, outdoors, at the bus stop, at work. And then it'll light up based on the air quality. So this is just the color scale. Blue indicates good air. Interestingly enough, green is moderate. I know Clay said we all associate green with good, right? In this case, green is okay. And then orange, yellow means that your air quality is polluted. There's a lot of VOCs in the air. And then it goes to red, which is severely polluted. It produces an air quality score, as you see here. So great way for students to say, hey, this is the score of my school compared to other schools. It also measures humidity and temperature. Question, sir?
What's the cost of this device? And it doesn't. It just gives you a score. It doesn't say X part.
It says VOCs right there, sir. Sorry, it says that I don't have the pointer. It reflects off the screen, but. Let's go back. I'm not going to use my clicker, yeah. So it says the VOCs right there on the bottom left. Yep. Yep.
How long does it take to read?
It's instantaneous, real time.
How much does it
This one is about $179. So it's cheaper than the stationary
Yeah,
devices.
cheaper than Purple.
Power source and.
Yeah,
It's
they're-
a mobile power source, so it gets charged up. and then
yeah.
just
It
gets
comes with a
charged.
charger, so you just kind of sit it. It's like a walkie-talkie charger. Just kind of sit it on the charger, and then it's good to go. And so the next one is the Flow. So it's similar to the Atmotube. As you can see, they look very similar, and that's because they're meant to be, put onto a belt buckle. You can just kind of wear it as you walk, or on a lanyard, so you get breathing level pollution. This measures not just VOCs, but also PM and NOx. I think this is a little bit more expensive, about $200, but as you can see, you have a great suite of pollutants here. And then it also is color-coded, but in this case, they use the system I'm sure we're all familiar with, where green is good, yellow is moderate, and then orange and red is unhealthy. And so last but not least, we have our AirCasting Airbeam. I think this was being passed around. It looks like the little ghost. So like the others, you just kind of wear it around your neck or on a lanyard, and it's weather resistant, which is great. So, let's say you want to go on a rainy day or something, right, when there's snow or, whatever it might be, this will still work. And it has an SD card built in, so if there's any issues in the field, it'll still collect onto that card. And all all these mobile monitors, they all produce an Excel spreadsheet that's automatically sent to your email address after your session. So you go onto the app, the corresponding app, and you just hit export to device, and it'll produce a spreadsheet. And that can be sent to the research team, that can be sent to yourself, and then you can process the data and evaluate it accordingly. So these are just some of the low-cost monitors on the market. We only have a certain amount of time, otherwise I would go over probably the 100 or so that are on there, competing with one another for PM, VOCs, black carbon, etc. But I wanted to stop there, and I want to thank you all for listening, and we can take any questions at this time. I think we have 15 minutes or so, so thank you. Sorry if I was rushing through it. I wanted to make sure I saved time for questions and keep the great conversation going, and love learn about what's going on in DC as well. So thanks for letting me know about that. So any additional questions or comments? Anything online? Anything online?
A comment that says that we have two networks underway, one in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and one in Atlanta, Georgia. They're both using the PurpleAir monitors, and then he's looking to install advanced monitors like the black carbon and QuantAQ.
Okay, so the question our comment was, there is a hyperlocal PurpleAir network in Hampton Roads, Virginia, and Atlanta, Georgia, and they are looking to expand and use more of the higher-end monitors for other pollutants like black carbon and the QuantAQ MODULAIR. And I just wanted to follow up and say Hampton Roads is actually a community that we are working with this group called Black Wall Street, and they're actually working to create clean energy jobs as well. And we're also doing air monitoring there. So I think we're actually going to be bringing in, if we get awarded the grant, we'll be bringing in the black carbon monitors, we'll be bringing in the MODULAIR, and we'll be bringing in the VOC sensors. So if that individual could send me an email, we can talk more. And do we have my email address on the next slide? So I'm just going to leave this on as we answer the questions. So email myself or Clay, and then we can talk further about that collaboration.
And thanks for listing all of the jurisdictions that you guys are working in, particularly those that are dealing with the carbon detectors,
Mm-hmm.
quantum, air quality modules. So I guess my question is there any organizing going on between these regions to move legislation or to really go up against those big industries? So don't allow those communities to go up by themselves. What does the organizing look like on the ground level? As they're experiencing, as you're monitoring, collecting all the data, and they're collecting probably the experiential portion, right? So I'm just, not the experiential, but just their stories. What does that look like as far as advancing policy and really going up against big business?
Right. That's a great question. I know I can speak for Curtis Bay. The residents have also, the South Baltimore Community Land Trust has used the best resource, which are the residents' ears, their eyes. Photo Voice is a great example to capture and document their living experience. We've worked with the Johns Hopkins Center, Charmed, who've done a lot of work, and with other groups, not specifically for Cheverly, but we worked, yes, we have.
So we've been working with you all, Cheverly's folks, more recently. We've been testifying and meeting a couple times with the Metropolitan Washington.
MWCOG, yeah.
That we call
Mhm.
people to give them comments and stuff about a environmental justice action plan that they're trying to release for the DMV area. So we've been trying to, sync up and, be more in line than, our call to action and things like that. So we've been meeting somewhat regularly, but we're going to start ramping that up a little more.
Thank you, thank you. So that was the comment from a representative from Empower DC who's mentioned work collaborating with the town of Cheverly and working with the Metropolitan Washington Council of Governments, MWCOG. And then from our end, we've actually helped develop the Prince George's County EJ 2025 plan, and that has been leveraged for the countywide climate action plan that has been developed by Director Andrea Crooms. So that's an example from our end. But I don't know if,
Expanding more.
what's that?
No, I'm just saying we're
Yep.
always expanding more to help with outreach. Sure.
And you can become involved with MW, right? Anybody can make your
All right. Anything else online? All right, well, we can close it off from online. I'm happy to stay behind and talk to folks in the room, so we can do that. But I think we can go ahead and end this stream. And I just want to thank everybody online for tuning in, and I want to thank everybody here in this room for the wonderful, engaging conversation. And again, my contact information's up on the screen. So is Clay. So please reach out. We're more than happy to learn from you all as well. Thank you.